Before we start the show, I wanted to tell you a little about Sudio brand headphones. Sudio wants to revolutionize the way people see headphones, as not just any other tech device, but also as an awesome accessory. Now, I wondered where the name Sudio came from, and when I was browsing the website, I discovered how the name came about. The name Sudio actually does come from the Phil Collins song Sudio. You can read the whole story by going to sudio.com. Being a little old-fashioned, I ordered the rose gold and white Vossa earphones. They're not Bluetooth, they have the auxiliary cord, but if you prefer Bluetooth, you can order the Vossa Blah. The Sudio Vossa Blah features cutting-edge Bluetooth 4.1 technology with multi-pairing capabilities. Vossa Blah boasts up to 8 hours of unlimited playtime, with unique standby for up to 10 days, giving you the ultimate wireless freedom. I love my Vossa earphones. I listen to podcasts a lot, bordering on insane a lot. And the sound from these earphones is better than any pair I've ever owned. All of my favorite podcasts like Gone Cold or This Week in True Crime History come out crystal clear. The sound is amazing. I'm going to let Craig tell you about his headphones a little later in the podcast. Right now, you can get 15% off the purchase of your Sudio headphones by using our code TTT15. Just go to sudio.com, that's sudio.com, and type in the code TTT15 at checkout. And we'll include a link in our show notes to make it a little bit easier for you to order. And on with the show.
Hey guys, it's Lainey, host of the True Crime Fan Club podcast. If you're a true crime addict like I am, then my podcast is for you. It's a podcast for the ultimate true crime enthusiast, giving you a glimpse into the life and crimes of the most demented minds. You won't want to miss an episode.
Hello, everybody! My name is Karen Wickiam, and I am the host of STAT, Shocking Traumas and Treatments. I am a retired emergency room nurse who decided to take off the stethoscope and pick up the mic and delve into topics of medical history that will shock, terrify, and amaze you. I will break it down with a modern eye view. Please come and join me, and you will find out that sometimes it's the cure that kills you.
The following episode contains adult themes and language. Listener discretion is advised.
Henry Lee Lucas killed at least 175 people around the country during an 8-year spree.
The more I'd confess, the more they wanted.
Why do you think they did it?
Well, they wanted to make it look like I was the greatest monster that ever lived.
I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. You should have watched where you were going.
Can I tell you, I am not fond of cremations. I just don't like the idea of someone spending eternity in something the size of a motel ice bucket.
911, what is your emergency?
A man in my house.
Welcome to Texas True Terrors Podcast. Each episode, we take a true crime from Texas and compare it to the based on a true story movie.
I'm Maria, and I know the true story, but haven't seen the movie.
And I'm Craig, and I've seen the movie, but know nothing about the real story. In this episode, we will discuss the life of notorious serial killer Henry Lee Lucas and the lives of the victims taken before their time.
And the movie Craig watched is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and
Drifter Henry Lee Lucas.
Thank you.
One being miles and away better than the other.
All right.
I'll let you take a guess as to which one it is.
I'm going to guess it was probably the first one that was done in 1986.
Yes, with Michael Rooker.
Okay.
It was indeed the better of the two movies.
Because the killings took place in so many different areas, I'm not going to give stats on a specific Texas city for this episode. We do have a lot of information to cover with Henry Lee Lucas anyway, so we'll just go ahead and get started.
All right, so with Drifter Henry Lee Lucas, this movie is the not-so-good version. It was released in April 1st, 2009. It might as well have been an April Fool's joke.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. The budget was $1.5 million.
Wow, that's a low budget for a movie.
Just wait to just wait till Henry. In the ending credits, it says that the characters and events depicted in this motion picture are fictional. Any similarities to actual persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Which is funny because they put that in the credits of almost every movie. However, if it's purely coincidental, why is this a movie about a real person?
Right, and it has the same names and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
That doesn't, but other than that, it doesn't say based on a true story or things of that nature. It was filmed in either Llano or Llano, California.
I know in Texas we have a town that's Llano, but I don't know how they would say it in
it's
California.
Llano.
Yeah, there's a town in Texas called Llano. We used to go there all the time, go fishing.
So this movie was written and directed by a man named Michael Pfeiffer. I have never heard of this guy, and he has directed nothing but TV movies that I've never heard of either.
Nice.
Henry Lee Lucas is played by Antonio Sabato Jr.
Really?
From Melrose Place, The Bold and the Beautiful, and several other soap opera-esque TV shows. Otis is played by a man named Costas Sommer. The only thing that I actually knew from what he was in was Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo.
Okay.
The girl who plays Becky, Otis's niece?
I'm not
Sister?
sure. We'll get to it.
Okay. But she was played by a woman named Kelly Coran, who was in Argo. She was in an episode of Shameless and an episode of How I Met Your Mother. And everything else she was in, I've never heard of. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, it was released originally at the Chicago International Film Festival in September of 1986, but it didn't get an official release until September of 1990.
Wow. I did not know that.
Its budget was $111,000.
Wow.
And it made over $600,000. So, pretty good return. It was filmed in Northbrook, Illinois. As far as the accuracy of this, it says, this film is a fictional dramatization of certain events. Henry, in quotes, is not intended to be an accurate portrayal of a true story. The film is based partly on confessions of a person named Henry, many of which he later recanted. As to Otis and they call her Betty in the movie, the film is fictional. So, in Drifter, her name is Becky, and in Henry, her name is Betty.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer was written and directed by a man named John McNaughton. He did a movie called Wild Things with...
that's a very popular movie.
Yeah.
Very popular.
And another movie called Harvest. Michael Rooker plays Henry Lee Lucas in this movie. You'll know him from Guardians of the Galaxy as Yondu. He was in The Walking Dead as Daryl's brother. I forget his name.
Oh, okay. I know who you're talking about now.
Yeah, and he was in Tombstone as well. Otis is played by a man named Tom Towles. He was in House of a Thousand Corpses. He was in Rob Zombie's Halloween and the most recent Miami Vice with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx. All right, so I guess we'll start with Drifter since it actually goes through
his entire life.
His whole life, yeah. The movie starts off with him talking with the district attorney. I guess this is the guy he's been telling his entire story to. Okay, so we start off with Henry in handcuffs talking with the district attorney.
What was his name in the movie?
The district attorney? I don't think it ever said.
Okay.
But after this, it cuts to Henry and Becky in this film driving down a dirt road. They eventually get to their destination, and for whatever reason, he pulls her out of the car. He punches her in the face. He goes back to the car, gets a knife, and comes back, and he stabs her. The DA asks her why he did it, and he said, "'Cause I loved her."
Okay. You have a funny way of showing it.
Yeah. After this, it kind of flashes back a little bit to Henry, Otis, and Becky. They're in a car acting like jerks, talking about a hitchhiker they see and how if they were to pick him up, it'd just be nothing but an inconvenience for them, so why not just run him over?
Nice.
And then it kind of goes through a little montage. It shows them at a movie theater where Otis is being real loud and yelling at the screen. Some guy turns around, tells him to shut up, so Henry just gets up, walks over, and slits the guy's throat in the middle of the movie theater.
Okay.
And after this, Otis then takes the woman that the now dead guy was with them out of the theater.
Okay.
Then the three of them go out to the desert to hang out. Otis brings the woman from the movie theater. He drops her in front of Henry, who says he doesn't want her. So Otis then takes her and kills her and buries her body.
Okay.
Next, we see the police escorting Henry around while he's telling them what he did, and he's explaining how he likes having sex with corpses rather than women.
And that's something that he actually did. I found some YouTube clips of interviews with him, and he basically just said that I enjoy having sex with dead people.
Yeah.
I was gonna play the recording, but the audio was really bad.
They go back to the station. He's telling them more about who he killed and where. When they get a phone call from a reporter from the Dallas Star, which is not a real newspaper.
But the Dallas Stars is a hockey team.
Yeah. And then, well, there's also the Fort Worth Star Telegram. And
the Dallas Morning News, so they kind of probably just jumbled them together.
Yeah. And so he asked for an interview with Henry. And this is where Henry sits down and starts talking to the reporter and tells him where it all started.
Okay, so is this when he's in prison?
No, this is when he's a child.
No, I mean like...
Oh, he's
talking to the reporter, or he's just...
actually at the sheriff's department. Okay. The sheriff answers, says, who's this? They said they want to talk to Henry, and they ask Henry if that's okay. He's like, yeah, sure. Picks up the phone, and now he starts telling him where it all began.
Yeah, he loved being on camera and talking.
Yeah, and the DA knew that and was pissed at him the whole time, and was it eventually gets to a point in the movie where he's trying to tell the sheriff's office, he's like, y'all are all stupid. He's lying his ass off.
Yeah,
right?
and that's happened in real life too.
Yeah.
They're like, you're just giving him special favors and he's eating it up.
Yeah.
And telling you
whatever you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
So his mother, at least from the movie, was not a very nice woman.
No, she wasn't.
We flash back to when Henry was young. He was maybe 6-7 years old. Mm-hmm. His mother's mean. She's dragging him around by the ear, and so he tries to run away, and so for that she hits him with a piece of wood.
Okay. Do you want me to I can just do like a few things that lead up to him at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Lee Lucas was born in Blacksburg, Virginia, in the Appalachian Mountains on August 23rd of 1936. Both of his parents, Viola Dyson Wall and Anderson Lucas, were alcoholics. And Henry was the youngest of 9 children. So I think at that point they were done with
Well, in Drifter, it showed him as like an only child. There was no other children.
Well, he had one full brother and the other were half siblings.
Oh, okay.
And his mother was like 51 when she had him. So she was very old, or not very old, but older to have a child. And Henry had an IQ of 84. And what that is on the scale is borderline intellectual functioning, diagnosed by IQ test scores that are between 71 and 84. The family, they lived in a 2-room log cabin that had dirt floors. So that's not fun.
Yeah.
And his mother, Viola, was a prostitute.
Yep, she was.
And she ruled the house with an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
They say she brewed moonshine and carried a shotgun around. She would force Henry Lee Lucas, to watch her have sex with her Johns.
Mm-hmm.
And did they say much about his dad in here?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, because he was Anderson, and he was called No Legs because at one point he had fallen down drunk on some railroad tracks and had his legs run over. I'm like, how do you do that? I guess, he passed out, I guess.
Yeah,
That's so crazy.
But yeah, that's that happened in the movie. Or it didn't show it in the movie, but they talked about it.
Right.
And his mom was basically making fun of him for being a drunk and losing his legs and this and that.
In 1943, Henry began going to school, and Viola would send him to school wearing a dress.
Yep.
She put his hair in ringlets, and he didn't have any shoes.
Yeah, I've got a little bit about that in the from the movie. He's at school wearing a dress, and the teacher asks why he's dressed that way, and he says, "My mama dressed me this way. She says I ain't good enough to be a boy."
Oh God.
So the kids are making fun of him, and he runs out of the school out of embarrassment.
Yeah, and according to Henry, his mother dressed him as a girl for 7 years.
Wow.
So talk about like identity, crisis.
Yeah.
And at one point, Henry returned home from school wearing a pair of shoes that his teacher had given him, and Viola beat him severely for it.
Yeah, and this one, I've also got here that she's dragging him by the ear inside the house, and he tries to run away, and that's when, like I said earlier, she hit him with a piece of wood, and this is where our Mama No from the end of our theme song comes from.
Yeah, if you listen to the show all the way through, you'll hear her say, "I never beat you when you didn't deserve it." How do you justify that as a child that young? And she really did that in real life, and she beat him so bad that he was like in a coma and had to go to the hospital. Was in the hospital for like 3 days or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, after this, it goes to another scene, which it doesn't talk about this at all in Henry. Only in Drifter does it talk about he was playing with one of his friends outside one day, and they're getting a little roughhousing, and he gets stabbed in the eye with a stick by his other friend.
And that's why he looks so weird, is because he had a fake eye, because his eye. Let me see where I have that.
And it's funny because the makeup for this scene is really terrible. It's literally like a kid just with a fist holding a stick up to his eye, and there's like some blood on his hand.
That's crazy.
It was really goofy looking. After this, his mother says that they don't have money to take him to the doctor, so he's going to have to lose his eye. And his dad is trying to defend him, but that just leads to a fight, and his mom, like I said, was making fun of him for being a drunk and getting run over by a train.
Yeah, they talk about some issues. But yeah, basically the eye thing, it had gotten so infected that there was no saving it.
Yeah.
Because they weren't going to take him to the hospital.
Yeah. Well, in the movie, it's weird, the way that they went about it. Immediately after his mother says that they don't have money to go to the doctor, the very next scene, he's at the doctor. So,
okay.
So he's with the doctor. The doctor gives him a glass eye, and after he gives him the eye, his mom grabs him away and tries to take him out of the doctor's office, really just being a bitch. But as she's taking him away, she asks, how much do I owe? And the doctor says, your bill has been paid already. And it kind of alludes to her prostitution and...
Oh, I get you.
Certain payment for services.
Gotcha. Was his mom in the movie, did she look old?
Older.
Because you would think somebody that had a child at 51, or, at that point would have probably been 60.
Yeah, she looked maybe late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, if it was real life, she'd probably look all haggardly, and, Henry dropped out of school at age 14, and he ran away from home. I would too.
Yeah, I've got that in here. It's, I don't know, the way they did it is kind of weird. It goes back to adult Henry, where he's being interviewed by someone who asks if his mother is why he kills, and he replies that might be a part of it, but it's just like a hunger to him, the same way that we're hungry and can only be satiated by food.
Yeah, so after he ran away from home, he began torturing and killing animals and also having sex with them. Yeah, he would also set fires.
Yeah, didn't didn't show that part.
So in 1951, Henry's father, Anderson, there's different stories, but it says he died of pneumonia. And I've also heard that he was walking home from the bar or something and he fell, out in the yard and froze to death, or so who knows. And then I've heard some stories where he killed himself, but I don't know. So
yeah, they've actually got quite a bit of him as a teenager in the Drifter movie.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They show him walking with a young girl where he's trying to tell her that they're going to go skinny dipping. She says she's not comfortable with that, so she tells him no. And then he tries to kiss her, but she pulls away, and so this makes him angry. So he starts to choke her, and he chokes her all the way down to the ground. And eventually he lets her go and asks if she'll be his girlfriend.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so
she tried to kill me.
So
but...
she says yes. But
I guess so he wouldn't kill her?
I guess so. But then she kicked him in the groin, pissing him off really bad. So he pulls out a pocket knife and stabs her in the stomach.
Damn it.
After this, he meets up with his father at home, and he tells him he needs to see a doctor for his pain instead of drinking, his father's pain from his legs. His father says he doesn't have any money, so Henry tries to give him some money. The father asks where he got it from, and Henry tells him he stole it. And all his dad says is, well, just don't get caught. And then he says, your mama's going to tan your hide, boy.
Not if you don't tell her.
And he tells him he's done getting beatings from mama, and he just might have to kill her someday, to which the father replies, well, just don't get caught. Later on, we see teenage Henry. He's at a junkyard where he's busting up cars and just being a general hooligan, where he gets busted by a cop. Cop tells him to empty his pockets, and Henry's carrying drugs, stolen jewelry, and a pocket knife. The cop then arrests Henry. I guess they'd been after him for a little bit at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's what it kind of alluded to. But the next scene after that, we see him on a chain gang digging a trench with some other prisoners.
Yeah, when he was 18, he was sentenced to 4 years in the Virginia State Penitentiary. And he says later on that he actually felt more comfortable in an institutional setting. I guess living in a 2-room cabin with dirt floors, getting 3 hots and a cot.
Yep.
It's a lot better than that.
Don't say what I was thinking or what I was fixing to say. I was going to say 3 hots and a cot, dang it.
Oh, wow.
During this, it shows Henry, he breaks his chain with a shovel, takes off running, and I guess he escaped whatever place he was at. I don't know if you've got that in there.
No, he didn't. That I'm aware of.
Well, after this, we go back to the police station where the sheriff is asking him about his mother's murder. So this is when we cut to Henry, his mother, and another lady. I'm not sure who this is.
It's probably his sister.
That's what I thought, but it never really specified.
Yeah, because in 1959, he left Virginia and moved in with his sister. His sister's name is Opal in Tecumseh, Michigan. I don't know if I said that right. I'm sure I'll give somebody emailing me.
William Tecumseh Sherman?
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's how you say it. And is this the point where they're out? Did it show them going to the bar drinking?
I think they were coming home from the bar.
Okay.
Is what happened.
Yeah.
It didn't show them really out. It just showed them coming back home.
Yeah.
And this is where I kind of got confused about it being his sister or his girlfriend or something, because what it says in the movie is when they come walking into his house, his mother's asking him to come home and take care of her, to which he says no because he's got a woman to marry. So that's I don't know if he was with. It didn't specify that he was with anybody before that, but also this other girl seemed more like a family member than a potential spouse. I was really confused about that in the movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about either. But that's basically what happened as far as, she wanted him to move back with her to Virginia. And Lucas told her, I don't want anything to do with you. And they were having an argument in a bar, and that's when they left. So what I'm going to do now is I have a recording of Henry when his story version of him killing his mom. So let me play that for you.
Because she come in there wanting me to go back home. And I said, I'm not going back with you. I don't want nothing to do with you. So she started pitching a real bitch about it, and then I got up and left the tavern and went on back to where I was living at. And sometime during the night, he come in there with a broom handle and started beating my brains out. And I hauled off and swung at her.
He would never say, I stabbed her in the neck, but that's what he did.
She landed between the bed I was at and the old steel bed over on the other side of the room. And that's the last I remember seeing her.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can't just stab her in the back of the neck, or, admit to killing her, but not how,
Right.
when you know what you did.
And what was weird about it is, what happened, basically he said he sliced her neck. And his half-sister, Opal, discovered their mom the next morning. She was laying in a pool of blood, but she was still alive.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't show that.
Yeah. And what happened was the official police report states, which I read, that she died of a heart attack precipitated by the assault.
Damn.
And at that point, Henry stole a car and went ahead and drove to Virginia.
Okay. Well, went there anyways.
Yep.
So after he tells her no, he's not going to come take care of her, she goes to the bar that's in their house and starts drinking, but Henry says, hey, you need to stop drinking. You're too old to be doing that.
You were too old a long time ago.
Yeah. But they start arguing more, and his mother just starts beating the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And then this starts bringing flashbacks from his childhood, and then
now he's big enough to do something about it.
Yeah. So once she's done beating the hell out of him, she starts to walk upstairs, and as she's walking up the stairs, Henry pulls out a knife and stabs her in the back of the neck.
So they're close.
Next thing we see is him in jail for the mother of his murder.
Say that again.
All right. Little Freudian slip there. So we see him in jail for the murder of his mother, not the mother of his murder. A guard is coming to tell Henry to come to breakfast, but when he doesn't answer, the guard goes in to check on him, and Henry has apparently slit his wrists. Does it talk about... Do you have any information on that?
I can't remember. I know he did try to kill himself. But back to when, after the murder... He was headed to Michigan, and he was captured in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh yeah. See, it doesn't show anything about how he got caught for killing his mom. It just it goes from the killing to him being in jail.
Yeah, and he was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 to 40 years. While he was in prison, he received psychological counseling, and he actually told the psychologist that he had sex with his mother's dead body.
Jesus,
that's disgusting.
Yeah, I've got some stuff to talk about from that stuff. Not the sex with his mother part, but the therapy did not exactly seem like it was to help him, because after he slit his wrists, we go to him in the infirmary where the doctor is talking to Henry about a suicide attempt, and he tells him many people try to harm themselves to get into the infirmary, but most don't succeed. But you did enough harm to yourself that you actually required treatment. He then says, but the treatment that he's talking about is not treatment for his wrists. He's talking about electroshock therapy. And this doctor's very, very creepy. So he basically tortures Henry into complacency and almost retardation by electroshock therapy.
Yeah, I don't remember reading anything about that. So that could be just completely made up.
It could be, yeah. But by the time they're done with him, he's sitting on a doctor's bed and he's just literally just drooling.
Weird.
But after this, we go back to the police station again, where he's telling them about how he met Otis, or actually Otis in this one. In Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, they call him Otis.
Yeah, in real life, his name was Otis.
Yeah.
It's spelled with 2 T's.
And apparently they met at a soup kitchen. And the guy playing Otis in Drifter is hilariously a bad actor. He is not good.
Okay, do you want me to... I can kind of chime in here because there's a lot in between that and when he meets Otis.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because from this point on, both Henry and Drifter is the three of them, Otis, Henry, and Becky/Betty.
Yeah, I didn't get a whole lot into what supposedly Otis and Henry did. But on June 30th of 1970, after being in prison for just 10 years, Henry was released on parole due to prison overcrowding. Once again. Wow. Why are they letting murderers out? That's what I don't understand that.
Let the people that are in there for weed,
the low-level offenders,
non-violent crimes, let them out.
It's just so weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
So a little over a year later, September 29th of 1971, in Saline, Michigan, Saline, just Saline. 3 girls were waiting to go to school, and Henry stopped and asked them if they wanted to ride. I guess he creeped them out because they started screaming, and then he was arrested for attempted kidnapping, which was a parole violation.
Damn it.
And he was sentenced to 5 years. While in prison, he received a letter from a family friend named Betty Crawford and began corresponding with her. Maybe that's where the Betty came in. They might have, because Betty was a different person than Becky.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was Betty in Henry and Becky in Drifter.
Yeah, because December 5th of 1975 in Port Deposit, Maryland. Hopefully I said that right. I don't know. It's spelled like it sounds. Hopefully. After his 5-year sentence, Henry married Betty Crawford. The night of their wedding, Henry began sexually assaulting Betty's daughters. Henry threatened the girls by telling them he would kill their mother. But eventually, Betty's daughter, Constance, stood up to Henry. And the next day, he left for a job in Pennsylvania and never came back.
See, in this, though, I guess the people who made the movie were confused. I don't know. Because Becky and Betty are the same person, or are supposed to be the same person, at least.
Oh, yeah.
But in Henry, it says that Betty is Otis's sister.
Yeah, I think that's where that's Becky.
And then Becky in Drifter is Otis's niece.
Yeah, I can't remember which one, but I have it in my notes.
Yeah, that was a little confusing. But based on the way that they acted in the movies, they were supposed to be the same person. I mean, it didn't say how old she was in Henry, but in Drifter it said that she was 14 years old.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So at this point, he started drifting between family members.
Drifting.
Yep. And a nephew of his in West Virginia took pity on Henry and got him a job laying carpet. At this point, he met 18-year-old Rhonda Knuckles, who became his girlfriend. After threatening Rhonda several times, she told Henry she was leaving. He took a knife and threatened her and put a plastic trash bag over her head, tortured her for 3 days until a neighbor knocked on the door, surprising Henry. So at this point, Rhonda runs out of the house screaming and leaving her baby behind. Neighbors returned with a shotgun and demanded Henry hand over the baby. And Henry lied and said Rhonda was crazy and tried to kill him. For whatever reason, the neighbors believed him.
And actually, I take that back. Now that I have gone over my notes, I had just misspelled Becky's name as Betty. It's Becky in both movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that clears up a little bit of confusion on my part, at least.
Okay. So this is the point where we get to when Henry met Otis. And in 1978, Henry moved to Jacksonville, Florida, which was Otis Toole's hometown. I didn't really get into how he met Otis. Maybe they didn't meet in his soup kitchen. I don't know. But the two of them actually lived with Otis's parents for a while. And that's where Henry met Becky Powell, who was Otis's niece.
Yeah, see, in Drifter, it goes from Henry meeting Otis at the soup kitchen to immediately after that, the three of them and their adventures. In Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, they're all three of them are living in an apartment together.
Yeah. Well, Becky was 11 years old.
Oh, really?
At the time that at that time that Henry and Otis met.
I guess in Drifter they said, 11's a little too young. Let's at least make her 14, so it's not as bad.
But there's a lot of years in between when, things go on between Henry and Becky. But at this point, he took a job with Otis as a roofer, fixed cars for people in the neighborhood, and sold scrap metal. In January of 1982, Becky's mother died of a drug overdose. And a few months before that, her grandmother had passed away. So after becoming aware that Becky, at this time she was 15, was in the care of 2 ex-cons, the state of Florida took Becky to an emergency shelter. And Henry went to the shelter and convinced Becky to run away with him. At that point, they went to California.
Yeah, and see, it never really specifies where they went. It just shows them. It's kind of a montage of the 3 of them just kind of driving around doing stuff. But for one portion of the movie, for some reason, Becky's not with them after it's already been specified that she was with them. But then it goes back to Henry and Otis being together where they pick up a hitchhiker. And while they're driving, she turns and says, "I'm going to have to pay for this ride, aren't I?" To which Otis agrees. So they pull over and her and Otis have sex in the bushes, although Henry doesn't want to take part. So after they get back in the car, they start driving, and Otis turns to Henry and he says, "Well, what'll it take to satisfy you, boy?" Which then Henry starts freaking out, and he tells Otis, "Kill the girl." Otis is sitting in the back seat, so he takes a seatbelt, wraps around her neck, and starts choking her to death. And then once she's dead, they pull over, and this is where Henry finds out he has necrophilia.
Yeah, I honestly, doing this research, I did not find a whole lot as far as Henry and Otis actually being together. I think a lot of that, just like these 2 movies, was made up. Because, I have this when, Becky and Henry moved to California, Otis was not there. And at that point, they met Jack and O'Bara Smart, they ran an antique shop.
Yeah, see, I don't have any of this. I have basically, let's see, in Drifter, eventually they ditch Otis in some little podunk desert town looking thing. And then I'll have to, I forgot. In Henry, he says that he shot his mother. Or it was specified that he shot his mom and not stabbed her, which is weird. But in Drifter, like I said, they ditched Otis. But in Henry kills Otis. Or Otis in that movie.
Okay, so that's where it totally they totally went off. Well, because like you said, they said in the beginning it was not based on anything, so.
Yeah, so Henry goes out to pick up a pack of smokes one day, and after he leaves, Otis tries to rape Becky. However, Henry happens to come back, and he intervenes and beats the hell out of Otis until Otis grabs Henry's gun and points it at him. But before he can shoot, Becky pops up and stabs Otis in the eye.
So now he's gonna be one-eyed.
Yeah, and after this, Henry starts stabbing Otis a lot, like 50 times. But like I said, they ditched him in Drifter. Yeah. And even though the budgets, Henry was a better movie, Drifter was a worse movie. It seems as though Drifter is a more accurate movie.
Right.
And even though it's still worse but had the bigger budget, I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
I don't make movies, I just watch them. After all this, we go back to the police station in Drifter, where Henry's in his cell, and the district attorney comes in to talk to the sheriff. He has lots of evidence to prove that Henry didn't commit quite a few of the murders he has confessed to. The sheriff, however, chooses not to believe him because, as the DA said, he wants to be famous for catching the legendary Henry Lee Lucas.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he was really so legendary after all the research. I'm like, meh.
Yeah, right. Well, and like I said, the DA said he didn't do any of this. Like, really, the only thing that they know for a fact he killed was, at least from the movie, was his mother and Becky. And those are the only 2 that they know for sure.
Yeah, I have another one that I think he did too.
Oh, okay.
So this is still in 1982. Like I said, they met Jack and O'Bara Smart, the couple that ran an antique shop, and they offered Henry a job. And in May of that year, O'Bara asked Henry if he would take care of her aging mother, Kate Rich, who lived in North Texas. Becky and Henry arrived in Ringgold, Texas, at the home of Kate Rich. She was 82, and she had recently broken her hip. Within days of them arriving, Henry convinced Kate to allow him to take over her accounts at local stores. So Henry and Becky began to take advantage of Kate, charging items in stores, not doing work around the house, that kind of thing. Becky kind of got tired of living there. I guess she wanted to go back home to Florida. And eventually, Kate Rich's family had enough of Henry, and they ran him and Becky off. They were like, get the hell out of here. At this point, Becky and Henry started hitchhiking. Reverend Reuben Moore of the House of Prayer picked them up, brought him to his commune that was located on an old chicken ranch in Ringgold, Texas. Becky was miserable and wanted to go back to Florida. So Henry made this big show and told everybody, oh, I'm taking Becky back to Florida, you know, whatever. They went and started hitchhiking again, made it to Denton at a hobo camp on the side of the road. And at this point, Henry and Becky started arguing, and Becky slapped him and he stabbed her several times and had sex with her after she died. He cut her up into small pieces, went back to the House of Prayer, and told the people there that Becky had ran off and left him.
Yeah, that's about what I've got. Although I just want to interject with something that was oddly weird about Drifter. Right after they leave Otis behind, to which he's not too happy about, we get some kind of weird modeling montage of the guy who plays Otis. And I'm serious. It's like he's like biting his lip and running his fingers through his hair and everything.
Is this like a la Silence of the Lambs?
It was ridiculous. It was like watching cologne commercial or something. Like, I mean, and for no reason.
Weird.
Literally no reason. It just goes right back to Becky and Henry after this. It goes from Becky and Henry to Otis doing this modeling thing right back to Becky.
Somebody that was editing the movie was like, I'm just going to throw this in there.
Yeah,
and
I
not
guess
take
so.
This out.
Hey guys, this is Craig. You're probably listening to this podcast on headphones, right? Well, maybe you should check out our sponsor for today, Sudio Headphones. I have the Regent model. It's an on-ear model, and I am normally not an on-ear headphone fan, but these are very nice. They are slim, they're sleek, they don't look too big and bulky on your head. The ear pads are very comfortable, they have a very nice sound quality, they have 24 plus hours of active battery life, and 20 days of standby life. They also are very fashionable in that you can change the designs on the sides with these interchangeable caps, and you can get those in many different colors like white or black marble designs. Sudio wants to revolutionize the way people see headphones. They want to see them as an accessory in addition to a tech device, but they want to bridge that gap because when you have techie headphones, they're really big and bulky, sometimes goofy looking, or if you get really stylish headphones, they don't have the sound quality you're looking for. Well, these guys do, so please check them out. You can check out the link in the description, and when you go there, if you want 15% off any purchase, use the discount code TTT15. We want to thank our sponsor again, Sudio Headphones. We appreciate you. Thank you.
At this point, Kate Rich did not believe Henry that, when he told everybody that Becky had run off, and she started asking questions. Henry didn't like her asking so many questions, so he took Miss Kate for a ride. He ended up stabbing her, having sex with her corpse, and he cut up her body and also burned it in a wood-burning stove. We can stop there.
I've got a little bit left about Drifter.
Okay.
Basically, as you said, Henry and Becky were in the car. She was saying she wants to go back to her family, so he gets angry and he's like, all right, I'll take you back. Then on the ride back, she gets angry with him, says she doesn't want to be with him anymore. This is what sets him off, so he pulls the car over, throws her out, and just starts stabbing her a bunch of times. After this, he's talking to the DA again, basically, and it was never... because it cuts to the flashback of what's going on in his life before he was arrested, and he's telling all this to the reporter.
Okay.
And then once it flashes back to when he was arrested, now he's talking to the DA, and he's been telling the DA the whole time. So is it the reporter he was telling or the DA? It was not edited very well.
Weird.
But he's talking to the DA, and the conversation leads to Henry thinking that basically he has a God complex because he can decide who lives and who dies. He has that power.
Okay.
But the district attorney doesn't believe any of it. He thinks the only people he murdered were Becky and his mother. Everything else is just made up. Then Henry basically confesses that he's doing all of this because of the celebrity of it. He says he thinks he's bigger than Elvis Presley and Adolf Hitler, which I don't think so.
In all the interviews that he did, I never really got that feeling from him. That I think he just took advantage of a situation.
Yeah. Well, and basically he's telling him, he's happy with all the things that he has now. That, he's got color TV. He never had that. Mm-hmm. He's got cable. He's got cartons of cigarettes. And because of all this makes the district attorney angry, and he just storms off, and the movie fades out.
You some bitch.
Like, you asshole. You've just been doing this for, but I mean, why wouldn't you, I guess? If your life has been shitty your entire life.
Prison looks like a freaking dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're going to stop right there, and we'll finish up on part 2. So I guess we'll finish this up with some 5-star reviews that we got on iTunes. Thank you to Anna Leah 4, Chelsea from Based on a True Crime podcast, T Brown 1028, Carrie CAK,
McWhelan 90, McWhalen, host of the Unresolved podcast.
I think it's MC because his name is Mike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So MC Whalen 90, 350 GT. Nasty Snacks.
I've listened to it. They're pretty funny. They
Yeah.
have really short podcasts about nasty stuff that they try to eat. And yeah.
And then Esquire Me.
We got an iTunes review from Canada from Dark Divide Pod. She does a podcast called Dark Divide. Check that out. It's really good. We also got a couple of Facebook 5-star reviews. One from Janie W. and one from Allison E. And go ahead.
If you leave your reviews anywhere, iTunes, Facebook, Podbean, send us a message or email with your address and we'll send you a sticker and a magnet.
Speaking of stickers and magnets, we have a couple of Patreon subscribers that we will be sending stickers to.
We've got Lainey from the True Crime Fan Club.
And if you have not listened to her podcast, you actually heard her promo at the beginning of the episode. It's a very good podcast. And we also have Allison. I don't want to say her last name because I don't know if she wants us to or not, but we really appreciate you becoming a Patreon member, and we will be getting stickers out to you as soon as possible.
This might be the same Allison E. from the Facebook 5-star reviews.
I think you are correct.
I guess we'll do a couple of our favorite podcasts we've found since we recorded last.
I would check out, if I were you, the Asian Madness podcast. It's all about crimes that take place in different parts of Asia, Japan, China. I think it's a really, really good podcast. Also, check out, if you have not done, Disappeared by John David Booter. It's a very well done podcast. That's all I'll say.
And actually, this time I've got a few that I've been listening to.
Oh my gosh.
Some new ones for once.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Owen Wilson, everybody. So, I am not as big into true crime podcasts as my mother is. I really enjoy audio drama type podcasts. So I've been listening to a few of those since the last time we recorded. One of these is called the Black Tapes Podcast. It's a really good podcast. It is about a girl who is doing research into the paranormal, kind of trying to come at it from a unbiased perspective, but with a little bit of skepticism, when she comes across this man named Richard Strand, who is basically, at first I didn't realize that it wasn't a real thing. I thought it was real. I thought it was an actual documentary or docudrama type podcast. It's not real. But she goes to this guy named Richard Strand, who is kind of a James Randi-esque person. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. He actively seeks out to disprove paranormal sightings, exorcisms, things of that nature. He's even got a $1 million prize, just like James Randi did for proof of paranormal activity. However, he has a case full of these, what they call black tapes. These are his unsolved cases that he either cannot figure out or he just does not have the resources or the time or technology to debunk it. And so this girl, for her podcast, is trying to help him solve these black tapes. It's very, very interesting. I highly recommend it. Please check it out. One other one that I've been listening to also, I'm only a couple episodes in, but it's called Ars Paradoxica. That's ARS-PARADOXICA. It is about a young scientist from MIT who is working on a project when she accidentally sends herself back through time because someone from the 1940s happened to be working on a project, and for whatever reason, their projects collided and created a warp through space-time, and she got sent back to 1944. And it's really cool. Basically, she's trapped in the past and trying to get back to the future using only 1940s technology.
Sweet.
It's very, very cool. I would highly suggest checking both of those out. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, or any other podcast app. We're even on YouTube.
We also have a Facebook group, a Facebook page.
We're on Twitter at Texas Terrors, and we're on Instagram as Texas True Terrors.
And also check out our website, texastrueterrors.com.
All right, well, this is Craig.
This is Maria.
And we're signing off. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Tell me about your mama.
I never beat you and you didn't deserve it, boy.